from the Catholic Underground.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the Catholic Underground, which is your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 179. I'm Father Chris Decker. Joining me to my left, I think. Not really good with these directions. Joshua LeBlanc from Abbeville, Louisiana. Hello, Joshua.
Hello, everyone.
And on the other side, we got Father Ryan Humphreys, who is a priest of the Diocese of Alexandria in lovely Campty, which is probably looking nice this time of year, isn't it, Father Ryan?
It's gorgeous this time of year, Father.
When isn't it, a tarantula-laden wonderland of forest?
Well, we only had 2 tarantulas join us for All Souls Day, and I thought that was a good number.
That is a pretty good number. I mean, do you communicate tarantulas?
No, they're actually too small, and their teeth are too small to consume our Lord. Also, they don't have souls.
there's that. Now Aquinas would say that they do, right?
No, they don't have immortal souls.
They don't have a rational soul.
They don't have souls that matter.
That's right.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I once got into a very long discussion with my veterinarian over whether or not animals have souls. Well, really, it's, will I see my dog in heaven? That was kind of the gist of it. And I said, well, you really won't need to. And she didn't really understand that. I don't know.
As long as John Cleese is there,
let me just say this. If my dog attains heaven and having done nothing in this life, I'm going to be pretty ticked.
That's right. That's a pun very intended, I suppose.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, there are some things that just aren't funny, and that's what's going on in the world with Occupy, fill in the blank. In fact, I've seen on the internet there is a counter movement called Occupy Advent. This would be a great Occupy your church parish. Yeah, this is one of those things that actually brings me some worry. I don't know. How do you feel, Father?
Well, I think any student of history doesn't need to be too wound up about it. Every couple of generations, there's the need to vent animosity.
Mm-hmm.
And in every democracy, there's the need for the young, who are typically stupid, and I can say that as somebody who's young, to think that they should have a much larger opinion in the decision process than they do.
Mm-hmm.
We saw this kind of animosity in the 60s. We also saw it before that, and every democracy has seen something along the lines of this. And so I don't know that it's something we need to be too wound up about. It's something that will come and go as democracy evolves and it changes. But I think that the concern we ought to have, as deep as it goes, should be from the fact that this movement doesn't come out of any place. It doesn't come out of a place of direction. It doesn't come out of a let's get out of the war in Vietnam. It just comes out of we're mad.
Right.
We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. But we have no idea what we're going to do. So we're just going to go out and blow stuff up. And there is a certain degree of concern when you have typically stupid people, again, young people, who don't know what they're doing and are just angry, and they don't even know who to direct it at. There's never anything that can come out of that good. So there's a reason to be somewhat concerned if you live in the vicinity of these protests.
I know when we were in Rome just a little while back, we had a little bit of an issue because there were people that were blowing things up in Rome. There was an Occupy Rome movement right before I left a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't seem to have any sort of, as you say, any sort of reason. Whereas at least with something like the Arab Spring, which people are talking about, it began conjecturally with a desire to overthrow an evil government. But
what bugs me about all of this, this Occupy Wall Street, this Occupy anything, is it all stems, at least from my perspective, from this idea that someone else owes you something. And that's what bothers me in this whole process. It's as though, for example, in the United States, we have this idea that as Americans, that because we're born in this country, therefore our government inherently owes us something. Mm-hmm. And if we don't want to work for for what we want, then the government should give it to us freely, and that really, really, really ticks me off.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really, what do you do? What do you do in an instance like that? Um, yeah, I don't know. There seems to be something here too within the Catholic realm, because we as a podcast, we know that what we do takes sufficient preparation and it takes a lot of prayer. We also know that before a priest gives a homily, he should be preparing. Before, Josh, you go out to do the work that you do as an IT guy and computer solutions and things like that, you have to prepare. You have to get your tool bag ready. You have to kind of mentally think, okay, now how is this project best going to be done?
Right.
And it requires something that is disciplined in you. Whereas there are days that we all have bad ones, don't we? Josh, you had a very busy day today, and
yeah.
and we get angry and we get frustrated and things like that. But whenever we don't prepare and things don't bear good fruit and things like that, it's not our fault necessarily. We actually reap the benefits of what we sow.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, if I didn't work, then as Scripture says, then one should not eat.
Right.
The expectation, really, again, it's a biblical principle. The fact that the man, earns his keep by the sweat of his brow.
Mm-hmm.
That we shouldn't expect something to come to us simply because we live in a democracy. The idea that, and that's one of the real reasons. Not getting into the whole gist of things, but that's one reason that the welfare system in the United States really bothers me, because these systems are meant for people who legitimately need them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Catholic principle, of course, of helping our fellow man. But what happens is 9 times out of 10, actually, you have people who are using the system to their benefit, know how to work the system, and so are using the system to keep them from having to either gain real employment or some of those things. And then who ends up suffering for that? The man who toils by the sweat of his own brow.
Right.
If I work a full day's work, I expect that I'm going to get paid for that work out of justice. It's a matter of justice. I don't sit in my office and say, well, I'm just going to send people random bills for work I've never done and expect that I should get some money for that.
Yeah.
Again, that's a hindrance, or should I say it's devoid of the virtue of justice whenever you do something like that.
That's right. And I think that's really it. Now, supposedly these Occupy movements are supposed to be, I think, maybe, Father, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they were supposed to be just protests over the fact that that those in charge have been mismanaging our finances.
Yeah, then I think it's more on the lines of there's a general animosity that some people are really rich, and then it's kind of the absurd idea that everybody else is extremely poor. There's a bit of a caricature that says, the top 1% of people, 1% of people have a very large amount of wealth, and that is the case universally. And again, it's about being a student of history. These ideas, and I don't want to bore anyone with too much philosophy, but back in 1864, Pope Pius May 10th, issued what he called the syllabus of errors, and he said, y'all, Kant and Descartes and all these Enlightenment quote unquote philosophers are going to catch up with us.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing right now is exactly that. Back in 1864, the Pope said, look, we've got to start thinking Thomas Aquinas, because if we try to rely on politicians, or we try to rely on economic theorists, or we listen to people like Karl Marx, who thinks that all people are nothing more than cogs in a machine, or if we listen to people like Charles Darwin, who say that all people have this inherent desire to work towards some random evolutionary end, or we listen to people who believe that materialism can satisfy us, we're going to go down the wrong road. And, that's exactly what we see with this crowd and with a lot of people. They think if we just had better politicians, or just had better economic policies, or we just had better laws, then everything would be great. But the problem is not those things. The problem is we just need better souls.
Yeah.
We refuse to recognize that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
Yeah.
We refuse to recognize that human beings are inherently sinful.
Yeah.
And we refuse to recognize that it doesn't matter who has the wealth and it doesn't matter who has the poverty.
That's right.
The real problem with our government, with every government that has ever existed and will ever exist, is original sin.
Yeah.
And we own up to that, and we say it's not Wall Street, it's not the industry, it's the individuals within the industry who are hoarding wealth.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, those people are to blame, but quite frankly, those people also drive that big Hummer H3 that drove right through that crowd and going back to their big luxury mansion,
Right.
and doesn't care in the least what you occupy.
That's right.
You
Please
know,
don't vandalize this cash machine because it's the one that I use on the way home.
I mean, it's it just shows, and we see a lot of this nowadays too in the church. We think that if we just have a better politician, or just a better lawyer, or just a better law, or just a better bishop, or just a better cardinal, but in reality, it always comes back down to individual souls. It always comes back down to a saint who walks into a room and everybody is blown away. Mother Teresa transformed the world not by doing anything or by knowing anything, just by living the life of a saint.
And maybe that's
what the church has always taught.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should start saying is I am the 100%. I am responsible for my salvation. And I'm also responsible for the person around me, in so much as I live a life of virtue, I live a saintly and holy life.
That's right.
Yeah. It's the same. Who was it that said the glory of God is man fully alive? Was that St. Ambrose?
It sounds like it.
It sounds like something he would say. And that's really what we're talking about is being fully alive. Whenever we are living life in its fullness, living life as Christ came to give it, to give life and life abundant, life that is full in this life and life, of course, that is fulfilled in the life to come. We're talking about being responsible each for ourselves. And even if you are the 1% who is going crazy and getting angry, there should be some sort of examination taking place there.
Sure, and I mean, at the end of time, we can't stand before, our Creator. We can't stand before God and say, well, you know what, I would have been holy had I been given more opportunities to be holy, like, my neighbor.
Right.
Or someone else. I wasn't given the opportunities to become holy, so I'm sorry. I was in the 1%. I was in the 99% of, and not that 1%.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the other guy's fault. It always is.
Yeah.
The devil made me do it. Right. If I'd had more of a chance.
C.S. Lewis has an amazing chunk in the book Mere Christianity, where he talks about the person who has an inherent desire for violence and doesn't even know why he has it, and comes up in a rough neighborhood. He says, this guy may be more saintly by simply giving a light beating to that guy over there than is the person who grew up with a mild disposition in a good gentlemanly home.
Yeah.
And comes out and may work very hard for the poor, but God doesn't see our limitations. God sees who we are.
Yeah.
And the guy who is prone to violence may enter heaven very, very much before the mild-mannered guy to whom virtue came easily. And C.S. Lewis basically says you just got to live with what you have. Use the best of its potential, and don't fret that you don't fit the mold, or that you don't fit compared to that guy over there.
And of course, that's where the media and podcasting can come in handy, right?
Absolutely. We have an obligation to tell people this kind of stuff. And certainly not to just egg it on, and not even to limit it to politics and say this isn't about politics. This is about a ridiculous sense of entitlement and a rejection of the understanding of who the human person ought to be.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's like the quote from Mother Teresa. I don't know if it originated with her, but she said, if you can't do great things, do small things in a great way.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's really what it's about is it's interesting. It's almost like the inverse of Marxism, right? Because Marxism and socialist and communist points of view, just as you said, Father, see people only as cogs in a machine, But if we rather as Christians see ourselves as parts of the body, see, that's not mechanistic. That's actually organic. That's right. Alive. And we all are working for the good of the head, right? We're working for Christ, and that is almost the complete opposite, but at the same time, it's a comparison to the communist system or the socialist system.
Absolutely,
there could be a whole homily in that somewhere.
Yeah,
there's an essay I'm currently working on in that.
Oh yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
it's like the quote from Thomas Jefferson that says, "A government big enough to give you everything you need is a government big enough to take away everything that you have."
Well, that's very true, and we've seen it happen, as you say, Father. Anybody who's a student of history can see where we've been and where we're going. Just if you look around the world at what's going on, too. Not to be,
Absolutely.
a fear monger, but we do. We're always vigilant, and the church always reads the signs of the times. That's what we're called to do.
Well, if you do get too nervous, you just go read the Canticle for Poets, and you realize that there's a much larger context to all this. And we don't. And just
Yeah.
That's right.
just if our culture dies, it doesn't mean our race dies. It just means our culture dies.
That's
And,
right. And
all cultures, that for everything under heaven, there's a time and a season.
that's right, exactly.
You the
And
birds.
everybody gets rebooted at some point.
Absolutely.
Read some Michael D. O'Brien as well.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Michael O'Brien has an awful lot more hope attached, which is odd because he writes about the cross so very well.
But the man can't write an ending. God, he needs to send me the first 40 chapters of his book. I'll just write chapter 41.
You see, he has a new one out.
Yes. In fact, there's a trailer, a video trailer for this book. I haven't seen it yet. I saw it. It's starred on Google Reader.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, I just saw it. In fact, I bought it on the Kindle. A Father's Tale is what it's called, I believe.
Yeah, I have a sample in my Kindle.
Yeah, I haven't started reading. I just
Did you
bought
get
it
the new
outright.
Kindle, Father?
I did not get the new. I'm just using the Kindle app.
Oh,
But
okay.
I did buy some new shoes today.
That's in some way related to.
Well, I mean, it's a purchase. I spent the same price as a low cost Kindle on shoes today because I need running shoes. So, at any rate, we were talking about rebooting, and it's not. Well, I don't know. It's kind of Robin Hood. The hacker group Anonymous has kind of rebooted some of their attack ability, their mad leet skills, and they are turning their attacks onto servers that host child pornography. Which, I mean, that's a good thing, I think.
I have to say, as a mildly embarrassing thing, I had a dream maybe a month or two ago about what it would be like to, and this is embarrassing, I'll just roll with it, to come across like a Star Trek computer, like a full-on Star Trek kind of computer, and to basically be able to turn that thing on and say, okay, we're going to fix some problems. And one of the things in my dream was I said, okay, computer, and I didn't talk into the mouse. I don't have a Scottish accent, but I did tell the computer, I said, go and find all the porn in the world and just delete it, just fry it all at the same time.
Oh.
And I said that would be just such a cool thing to do with a computer. And then I look up and I find this article,
right?
And I was just beside myself with happiness. This is just wonderful.
So you had the dream before you found this article?
Yes, but my dream had nothing to do with child porn. It was just wipe out porn. It was also wipe out debts and all kinds of other social justice people would have just had a field day with that dream.
Maybe it could be like a mini series. You could be famous.
I don't know, with miniseries. Yeah, do you think we could get Michael Weatherly in?
Yeah, there you go. Or at least what's his name? Not Gary Sinise, but the William H. Macy. That's who I want to see.
Yeah, that guy's pretty scary.
I want to see Father Ryan being played by William H. Macy. I think that'd be awesome.
I don't know, that would he'd have to put on.
I think John Malkovich could play Father Ryan too.
And Joshua would be played by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Well, Steven Seagal's put on a lot of weight lately. I'd like to see him play me.
There you go.
We have to cut off his gigantic ponytail.
His man
But at
tail.
any rate, this is the same group. Bringing us back to focus.
Right.
That had done all those attacks against Sony and Nintendo.
Yeah.
And they claim to do them just for fun.
Because they can.
Because they can, but they've decided that it's time to actually do something good with it, and so they have been really hitting a lot of child porn and other kind of things that they consider inappropriate and wrong, and just wiping them off the map. And even if they're doing something that is wrong, and the moral principles, you can't do evil to bring about good.
Mm-hmm.
It does raise some questions of, well, what they're doing is not inherently evil any more than sending the police officers to a server farm is inherently evil.
Yeah.
They're certainly doing something that is very, very aggressive and can be used for good or evil, but it's kind of like, is a gun in itself inherently evil? No. Is a DDoS in and of itself inherently evil? I would think not.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, well, anytime you're shutting down a server that could host other things, like, I don't know,
Catholic Underground.
Catholic Underground. Yeah, we'll just leave it there, shall we?
We'll get to that later.
That's right. We'll get to that. And now this story, I almost don't believe, on some level. This is Jimmy Fallon. You know him. He's the guy who ended up with Conan O'Brien's show on the NBC network. He's got the late night show on NBC.
He's famous on SNL for being completely incapable of not laughing in every.
That's
sketch
right.
he's ever
If ever there were a character who broke character so very often, it was him. Never. You're right. Every time. But apparently he was on the NPR show Fresh Air, and the host Terry Gross asked him about his Catholicism. Isn't that right? That's something else. Now this has happened a lot with people that have been asked about their Catholicism that happen to be Irish Catholic usually. I don't know if Conan
NPR nonetheless.
Yeah, on NPR. Yeah. Now I wonder if Conan O'Brien still goes to mass.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't know. I've never read it.
Yeah. Anyway,
the other big famous one was Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To say nothing of what's her name? Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, Kirsten Dunst.
No, not Kirsten Dunst, but the one who wrote Anne Rice. There we go.
Anne Rice. Yes. Okay.
That's right. So sorry about that, folks. It's really a seat of the pants show. I promise you. It's just one of those days. So Terry Gross asked him if he was still a practicing Catholic, and he said that he was, but like so many teenagers, that's when he stopped going to church. And then in the 90s, he tried to attend Mass again, but complained that the Mass had changed from the Irish Catholic Masses he knew as a boy. Among the complaints, the atmosphere was way too casual. This is Jimmy Fallon saying that. Never was there a more casual man, I think, invented in the mind of God. Gee, that was really, that's quite a statement. The atmosphere was way too casual. There was a rock band playing. People were holding hands constantly. And tongue-in-cheek, he complained about Frisbees being thrown around. Now, of course, this is a guy who's fallen away from the faith. This, he said, was not Mass. He went on to say how he cherished the old Mass, the bells, the incense, the kneelers, and the aesthetic it created. Now, this is an actor saying this, too, so this is, to some degree, an artist.
And this is a young actor. This is not the Mass from the 40s. This is the Mass from the 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
That's
he was
exactly.
born in 74.
Yeah, so this would have been the Mass before, really before 1980, when we saw a lot of that kind of hyper folk Mass, when it had settled in,
Or as Abbot Patrick would say, hootenanny, hootenanny.
That's exactly right. And then he said, and then I'm taking this from the Pernicious Papist blog. We'll put it in the show notes. He said that he totally disapproved of the Mass with all. Wait a minute, I'm getting this wrong. Then in the one quote I can recall with certainty from the interview, he said that he totally disapproved of Mass with all the bells and whistles, following that up by saying, "Just give me the Mass." I mean, that's a young lapsed Catholic saying that. Just give me the Mass. Give me the Mass. Give me the Word. Give me the sacrament, and let me be on my way to make holy the mundane. That's really something. Mm-hmm. Hard to believe.
No, I think it's spectacular. I mean, I know more than a couple people, who have abandoned Catholicism because they feel like, what's the point in going? And here's one more who said, well, I understood why it was what it was, and now when I wanted to go, it wasn't there anymore.
Right.
And that in and of itself is somewhat terrifying. Here's a poor guy who wants to get back involved with his faith, and it's not a random nostalgia. It's no, thank you. I don't want to go to beach party Jesus. I mean, it's a real key kind of thing.
And the thing for me that really is beautiful is that he recognizes that there's a God.
Yeah.
In the midst of that, you don't, like you say, he's not just going to Mass because there's some sort of Irish Catholic obligation, but he wants to go to Mass. He wants to experience the living God. And one of the things that worries me is that we seem to now have the problem on the other side of the coin is as the church once again is kind of reasserting, thanks be to God, the adherence to the norms of the liturgy and things of that nature. There are folks who've been getting the craziness for so long, they're leaving the church because they've become used to the craziness, and it really is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
One of the things that's I find particularly difficult is Pandora's box in some sense has been opened.
Mm-hmm.
And things that the church has long known are a bad idea, have become so ingrained that you get into a situation where it's very, very difficult to unentangle some of those sentimental things. And of course, one of the things that the Catholics always understood is that you can't just take away; you have to replace. Of course, that means a lot. Pastors who are already tired, running around trying to say, okay, we've got to bring into, let's say, holding hands during the Our Father, but we've also got to. We can't just pretend that the sentiment there is not real. So now we've got to have devotions as well. Not an additional thing, maybe Sunday Vespers or something that is itself a little more sentimental.
Yeah.
And that means pastors who are already tired now having to go the extra mile. That's a tough thing to do in and of itself.
Yeah, it is. But for people like, especially those in Hollywood, what must we do? I mean, that's the thing. What must we do? Not just to win them back to say, hey, we got Jimmy Fallon, but to actually be able to respond to their souls who are saying, yeah, I want something. That's a beautiful thing to me. I hope that Mr. Fallon is able to find the Mass. I do. With all that is within me. So now, one of the things that we haven't done in quite a while is to talk about all the books that are out there. Plenty of people do. A lot of other podcasts do that, and we sometimes do. Now's the time again. There are plenty of top-notch books out there that we're recommending. Father Ryan's probably read most of them by now.
Yes. Well, I've gotten started on the one about women's spirituality. I find a little harder to get into.
But it's very popular.
There are 4 out there that people are telling me you just got to get on top of. The first in the list that I want to do a quick review of is called In Defense of Sanity, the best essays of G.K. Chesterton. Chesterton, as you know, is a gigantic thinker. He's somebody who's very accessible. Now, his most important works are Heretics and Orthodoxy. But this book is a series of the essays of Chesterton. Many of Chesterton's books basically were compilations of essays. And so he was a master essayist and somebody who really knew how to flip around the perspective and say, this guy seems to make so much sense, doesn't he? Well, he's an idiot, and here's why. The reality is this. And really, he was almost personally responsible for so many of the good things that happened at Oxford at the time of the inklings of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. And so this book is really good. It's quite readable. There are a couple of the essays that you kind of want to have some more philosophy background to read, but most of them are really, really good.
Yeah, David Dawson from Catholic Community Radio is presently reading this book, and he likes it very much, In Defense of Sanity. He says that there's some great quotables here in the book, and he always likes to quote them to me as I go to visit him. And I see that you can get an EPUB version of it or a PRC from Ignatius Press.
And it's an unprotected. I've actually purchased some stuff from Ignatius Press, digital downloads, and they're really, really easy to use.
Way to go. I'd rather support Ignatius Press than just going to a big box website,
Well, this is, and not to get off topic, but this is a perfect example of a Catholic site that gets it. That, you have to, we can't just produce things in a traditional manner. We have to do it in things people want. I remember when I was amazed that the Ignatius Bible I could download in EPUB format and put on my iPad.
Yeah.
And to this day, that's what I carry around on my iPad. I know I always have the Ignatius Bible on me. So the fact that we have a Catholic publisher that's doing that really amazes and excites me at the same time.
And when Josh gets both amazed and excited, you got to get out of the way.
Yeah, it's just, I kind of start to blow, and
that's right. Something's going to steamroll, and
my voice might go up an octave too.
That's
and
right.
I'm like, giddy.
Also, there may be pasta involved. I'm just saying. Anyway,
there's always pasta involved.
That's right. The next book actually is reviewed on Catholic Lane, the friend of Catholic Underground, Catholic Lane. And it's a book of saints for Catholic moms. Now, this is our friend Lisa Hendy who's done this. Joshua, do you know anything about the book? Because I know she's been talking about it an awful lot.
I'm going to be absolutely honest and say I have not read anything about the book. I've seen it all over the place.
Yeah.
But I have not specifically read anything. I've seen lots of Catholic moms actually commenting on it and saying how great it is. And, of course, Mary Cohan, who is my editor-in-chief over at Catholic Lane, wrote that article. Actually, she didn't write the article, but she comments on the article.
Yeah.
And she's read it, and I know she enjoyed it very much. So
basically the deal is this. For each saint, Lisa Hendy offers a variety of topics: a biographical sketch, reflections on lessons learned, popular traditions associated with the saint, a quote from the saint, a week's worth of scripture. This is going to be a birthday or a Christmas gift.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Mom doesn't watch the podcast. Or does she? At any rate, so you've got all the, and look, even activities to do with your children. Well, you can't look if you're listening. So there's all of this stuff to do with each saint, a book of saints for Catholic moms. What a really, really cool thing. So 52 different companions for your mind, heart, body, and soul from Lisa Endy. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. I might even read that myself, even though I'm not a Catholic mom.
The book that a lot of my friends in Alexandria are jumping up and down and quacking like a duck about is also the third book on our list is Teresa Tomeo's book, which is called Extreme Makeover. And it's basically when women transformed by Christ but conform to the culture. And it is a spectacular book. It is it's just well put together. And it's not the kind of book where, the first page is some good practical stuff, and all of a sudden it's 175 pages about why you should wear a man or why turtlenecks are for you. The book addresses modesty, it addresses chastity, it addresses feminine spirituality, and it does it in a really concrete and practical, but also deeply faithful way. Mm-hmm. And this is not one of these goofy, wild at heart books, written by some generic Protestant who's just looking to pump out another prayer of Jabez. This is a really good Catholic book from somebody who has been applying these principles for a long time.
Well,
and not that I'm calling her old, but it's a good book.
The great thing about Teresa Tomeo is if you've ever listened to her program in the morning, she's one of those individuals who spent most of her adult life in secular media and got fed up with it and came over to the Catholic side. And so she spends a lot of her time actually bashing secular media because of what they failed to do. And so she's the perfect person to speak about, the culture in regards to, transformation by Christ.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And in fact, if you're watching our video feed, you're seeing a very well done, very well done trailer for this book. I mean, really, we're in 2011. You get trailers for books. That's something else. And some very good. Bishop Chaput likes it. So really good looking book here.
I endorse this book.
That's right. So if you want to order it, you can go to Ignatius.com. You're getting the whole ad for it. Teresa, we did this free of charge for you.
And you know what? If you want, you can send Father Ryan your copy, and he'll put his imprimatur in it for you.
He will. That's right.
It's worth almost as much as, nothing at all.
That's right. That and a cat will get you a cat and a signature. That's right. Yeah. Now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know. I was just going to move on to the next one. Go for it, Father.
This is the last one on the list of things that I'm reviewing, and I have to admit, this DVD has not come in yet, but I watched the material on the website, and I'm very excited about it. There's a group called Anti-Production. It's a Catholic group. This is a group that is endorsed by National Catholic Register, by Zenit, by One News Now, and also by the Catholic Thing. It consists of a group what looks like two young people and two very old people. The old people are doctors and the young people aren't. But it's called, the production they have right now is called Out of the Darkness. And it is a production about true story of this young woman who left her life in the pornography industry to have a massive conversion and kind of to be in love with the Lord. And it is a beautiful, very Catholic production, and it's the kind of thing that right now, with all the other problems in the world, people are pretending to forget that one of the great scourges of Catholics is pornography. And this is a really worthwhile video, and something that I think we could, it's worth looking into.
Very cool. Yeah. I'm thinking about it too for catechetical purposes because, as you say, it's the thing that nobody wants to talk about, and it's almost as if there's so much going on in the world. Can't we just have this? I mean, I can just imagine what what our society at large is thinking. Even the Christian, the Catholic societies. Can't we just have some little? Everybody's got skeletons in the closet. Can't we just have? No, this is, as you say, this is a scourge. and it is wrecking marriages, it's wrecking relationships, it's wrecking friendships even, and certainly wrecking souls too. So I'm thinking about it for the catechetical purposes, because if somebody else is kind of bring it up, if you're watching a movie, you can kind of watch anonymously. I don't know. It just seems like it would be a really good thing for catechesis.
I think so. You hear confessions, Father. This is not a tiny little thing that's going away quickly. It really isn't.
No, it's not. It's not going away, and it's definitely in the top 5.
Yeah.
Very good. Moving along, CARA, or CARA, I don't really know how you pronounce it. It's an acronym. I myself am a member of the AAAA, the American Association to Abolish Acronyms. Card carrying. That's right. Quadruple A. I called them once, and they fixed my flat tire as well. The Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, CARA, published a study last week that shows that Catholics in general get their Catholic news and ideas, are you ready, primarily from print media.
What?
Who knew?
Yeah. I couldn't believe when I read this.
And now, Father, Joshua, you and I, all three of us, we were surprised as we didn't need a CARA result, because this happened at Catholicon.
Yeah. It's strange because I guess I never considered it, because, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I have a subscription to the National Catholic Register.
Yeah.
Whenever it
but
comes
you read
to
it
my
online.
office, well, that's the thing. It comes to my office, I pick it up out of the mailbox, and I stick it on the stand next to, the side table next to my chairs in my office. I never read the darn thing. I go online and I read it.
His name is Joshua LeBlanc. He's not reading it.
I don't read. In fact, technologically wise, you see behind me, there's a ton of magazines there on a magazine rack. Father Chris, you've done more reading of those magazines than I have.
And I'm proud of it.
In fact, I renew subscriptions now, knowing how much you enjoy them.
I noticed that they've made their way to the guest bedroom in your house.
That's right.
Because you know that I'm going to read them.
Yeah. I mean, they come in, I have all these great intents in the intent of reading them, but I don't. But I read tons of stuff online. For me, it's just easier to go to, ncregister.com, read what's going on there, even though I'm not going to get all the same content that's out there. But even my online local paper, I read online. And so it's foreign to me, the fact that a lot of people still get their stuff from print media.
Yeah, one of my priest friends who's up the road, he asked me if I got the local news, the Baton Rouge newspaper. And I said, why would I do that? He says, well, I want to read the newspaper. I said, well, I can give you an iPad, or I've got a Sony Dash, or I've got any 3 laptops, or you can sit in front of me. He goes, I want paper. I want it on paper.
Yeah, but we don't have that. I can print it for you.
I could print it out. That's right.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about this article is, don't I feel like bigger banana head, is that it says that most Catholics in the United States get their Catholic news from the diocesan newspaper.
Yeah.
And I've made very strong comments, of course, the last 2 years to a number of people at the Chancery, saying it's time to just get rid of the diocesan newspaper. It's a giant expense. And at least in my diocese, we don't charge for it. We mail out to every Catholic every other week, every Catholic family, but we don't charge a penny for it. It's a huge expense. And I read this article, and I said, wow, apparently I'm nowhere near as tuned in as I thought, because most people, that's where they get their information.
Yeah.
And in the course of the last few months, as we get closer to Christmas and there are more events, people want to take photos and go, Father, how can we get this in the newspaper? And I went, what are you talking about? Well, the diocesan newspaper, how do we get this picture in there? And, I thought that.
Well, I don't know. You could email it to them.
Yeah, right.
But for them, it's a big deal. They want to see their name and their picture in the diocesan newspaper, which, man, just caught me by surprise.
Yeah, Baton Rouge. That's the experience of many of the Catholics as well. From they say, Father, I read that in the newspaper, and I'm thinking, oh, well, wow, okay. I would have read it on a blog first, but I guess by and large, if you look at the people that are Catholic in many dioceses that are just familiar with traditional print, you've got older Catholics, that sort of thing.
It's, I'm Grand Knight of my Knights of Columbus Council, and the one thing I learned being Grand Knight is that the state Knights of Columbus Council loves to murder trees because these people send out stuff like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Nightline and all that.
Well, I would expect to read a lot of this stuff online. I mean, I get padded envelopes of things that are like 15 pages long, and I'm like, I would have rather read that in a PDF, but
Yeah.
it's hard. It just, whenever you work with organizations like this, it's hard to believe that there's still so many people who are getting their information disseminated that way. And I don't know. I'm not going to say that it's just someone like me who's more technical, and so I've moved on. So much as I think it's a paradigm. It's a different paradigm of how people receive information.
Yeah, it's
I do
something.
think, though, I do think this doesn't give DOS newspapers, especially, an excuse not to have a quality online product.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't think that most of the dioceses I'm aware of have a quality online product for their DOS newspaper. They
Now,
may have a PDF.
I'll say this: our diocese and the new website, they've got this weird thing going on for their. It's like a flash reader for their diocesan for the diocesan paper, and I hate it because when you get to page 11, it always crashes. So it drives me crazy because you have to actually skip that page so you can read the rest of it, because there's always a page, whatever page it is, that crashes. And I think you're so right, Father Ryan. We have to. I mean, they put the exact paper version online for you to read, and that's how I read it. So I think it's not. I think it's more of not so much how the information is coming, but the media type, because I'll read the same exact thing online.
Yeah, they use issue, which I've seen for whatchamacallit, for comic books and things like that. Yeah, and it does it is buggy because it's a flash based thing.
I mean, I like the way it lays out, but it gets buggy after a certain number of pages. It just crashes on me always.
Well, see, I think, though, that people like you, Josh, myself, and Father Chris, and other techno people, we don't really, and I can't say for everybody, but I don't really care about what the formatting of the newspaper, the print product looks like. I want the data.
Yeah.
And so I would like to be able to get the data on my Kindle or on my iPad or on my newsreader, whatever. And those people, I think, who want the paper product are not going to go to the web and look at the flash-based interface. And so it seems like you kind of find yourself in a situation where, unless there really does become a market for iPad or tablet-based zine products.
Yeah.
And right now there doesn't seem to be a really particularly compelling market for that. I kind of wonder whether it would just make more sense to just grab the text, grab the photos, and put them into a blog. I mean, do something beyond this kind of messy, confusing, hard to get at kind of way. People who are nerds, so give them a nerd way. People who aren't, and so give them a paper product.
Yeah.
But I think that's still something we have to work hard at. We're never going to have the funding that major newspapers are, but we've got to do a good Dawson product.
Yeah.
Because I don't read my Dawson newspaper. It's a paper product, which means it sits like Josh in a pile, and I rarely ever. I mean, I'll get 5 or 6 or 7 months behind on my paper journal.
Yeah. And
I think for me,
go ahead,
Father.
I was going to say I feel bad too because I want to support the National Catholic Register, but I'm not going to pay $149 a year to read it when I can get most of it online. It's a really, so I still donate, but it's very strange.
I think for me, it's the issue of being able to multitask.
Yeah.
Because when I'm sitting at my computer.
Right. You're tab switching.
Right, exactly. I can read that, and while I'm in the middle of reading it, I can go, let me update this, this server, let me update that, and go back to it. And whereas a paper product, I actually have to move away from my monitor, and I kind of feel like I have to, almost separate myself from my computer work and have a special space to do this, and it just doesn't work for me.
Which there's a homily in there too, right? Because with a Catholic newspaper, something shouldn't you just be focusing on that?
Well, see, but as a spiritual product, maybe. But I mean, if I'm reading an article in my Dawson newspaper about, say, all the communions, well, I'll share this photo or I want to share this information.
Right.
But
but there's
for
no
some
way.
reason, when I multi-tap on the newspaper, nothing happens.
It just makes a flap noise.
I swipe one side, swipe it, nothing. It's
I just get ink on my hands, and it's soy ink.
Until we either get the Harry Potter ink, or it becomes kind of tedious because we're such social media animals. Or this article has a great quotation, and so what do you have to do? Well, you have to either take out a piece of paper and write it down, or you use an app on your iPhone to record and character recognize.
Do what Joshua does, just take a picture of everything.
Well, I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah,
I have Prisma on my iPhone, and it does OCR from photos. But it's incredibly tedious to, if I was reading a book of sermon by the curé of ours, well, yeah, you need to get away from the computer. But if it's data and it's information and it's
Right.
it's input there, it makes no sense at all in our world not to be able to share that. And if you don't want to, fine. But you've got to have access and be able to. And I just find it frustrating that paper products have not
Exactly, and that's where an important distinction to make, Father Ryan, is I'm on that same route, that I cannot stand to sit in front of my computer and like I know for Mac they have like a Kindle app that you can sit there and read that would drive me crazy to have to read a book from my computer monitor. I have to have that feeling like I'm set apart. So which is why I will open my Kindle app on my iPad and go off into my own quiet corner, or actually I even still have the feeling that I have to buy the physical copy of the book, which is why when Steve Jobs' biography came out, for ease of access and quickness, I bought the Kindle version immediately, and then the next day I went to Barnes & Noble and actually bought the print copy. Because there's sometimes you just want to sit down with an actual print copy. I don't think print books will ever be replaced, because there's something about holding that in your hands.
Right.
And not having the distraction too. So I've been reading both. I'll sit in bed at night and I'll read from my Kindle. If I happen to be in a park or something, somewhere where I don't necessarily want to be bothered by a computer device, I'll sit there with the actual copy of the Steve Jobs biography and read from that. So, I get that might be just a little OCD in me that I have to have the print copy as well.
No, it's really OCD in the fact that you have to update your page turns manually with the book.
Yeah. Well, that's why I read
Again,
chapters
swiping
at a time.
never seems to work in my copies.
That's right. Swiping just turns the page. It's the only feature.
Yeah.
My goodness. So those are some of the books that we're looking at. That's the CARE research. That's still saying that people like to turn pages physically. Imagine that. Who knew? And speaking of turning pages, Father Ryan, you had a good retreat, didn't you?
It was lovely. I had our priest retreat. One of the reasons that we've been gone for the last 6 weeks is that we had a number of events happen, and one of those was my priest retreats, and one of those was your priest retreat.
That's
Father.
right. I had a good one too.
And, we brought in a dude named Father Michael Champon, who is the biggest Cajun. You feel like this guy's got to have an IQ of like 9 to talk to.
Father
And
Champon,
yet-
he's an intelligent
Ma'am, I told you, bull, Q, and all this kind of stuff. But then he goes, well, I happen to speak 6 languages. And, I did this extremely complicated doctoral thesis on Mother Teresa. You go, what just happened here? This is a guy who couldn't understand how to open a beer, and all of a sudden now he's speaking in fluent Greek. But it was really a great retreat on how Mother Teresa's spiritual tradition can apply to priesthood. And beautiful, about unflinching obedience, about the necessity of joy, about the essential nature of suffering, and also about how the power of prayer really can change the world. And of course, we're left with the interesting factoid. The missionaries of charity require each and every aspirant to have a joyful disposition. So that means me. I'm perennially grumpy, or at least kind of stone-faced. I'm not MC material. They're not welcoming me unless I have a
Cheerful disposition, you're not welcome in
Wow.
the MC. Fascinating, really good retreat, and it was nice to have such a down-to-earth kind of Cajun kind of experience. Beautiful retreat. Very good.
I don't think I've ever met a missionary of charity that wasn't joyful.
No,
I'm
it's
happy.
required.
I'm happy I didn't pursue that vocation.
That's
That'd be in the same boat as Father Ryan.
right. I'm in between two curmudgeons here.
Yes.
Of one kind or another. That's right.
I like being called a curmudgeon, even though it's an oxymoron.
That's where you can put it on. I get a mug for you with that curmudgeon. It'll be your curmudgeon. Anyway, yeah, that's that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna move directly from this, do not pass go, into what we like to call our picks of the week. Did you like that? I know I did. That's our picks of the week.
That's quality.
Sound. Let's go first to Joshua LeBlanc for the pick of the week. Joshua.
Well, I've got 2 picks of the week. For those of you who were not aware, last night, or should I say yesterday, I am convinced through the work of Satan himself,
Oh.
the entire Cyber Catholic server
Yes, it did.
went kerplunk. Basically, the server froze up, and so I told my host, I said, "Oh, just give it a reboot." Well, in the process of giving it a reboot, then the Linux operating system decided to say, I don't know I don't know that these files are legitimate. So it just started taking a whole bunch of system files and corrupting them.
Oh my.
And so my server was not able to boot. But thanks be to God, all the data was safe, and they were able to load me a new disk with a brand new operating system on it. And one of the things I love about Linux and reasons, but part of the reason it's my pick of the week, is the fact that they just mounted the second disk for me and said, go to town. And on Linux, it's Unix is the same principle. The Mac OS is built on the Unix platform. Is that it's not like Windows where when you install software, you have to install all these DLL files and things like that. Linux just works. And so what's great is that I was able. Someone posted online, hey, if your server has crashed and you want to, the control panel I use is called cPanel, and you want to be able to just copy all your stuff from an old hard drive. Here's a list of all these commands that you just have to run these, and it will copy everything over for you exactly. And so I was able, literally, in the course of 3 hours, to just copy all of the data off of the old hard drive and basically say, okay, server, restart, and then everything started magically working again with a few minor exceptions. But that's something that you simply just can't do with Windows. And so I really, the more and more I use Linux, I've been using it off and on for probably about 10 years now. The more and more I use it and learn it, the much more I love it. And so my first pick of the week, of course, Linux. My second pick of the week is an app that I just found about this week. Actually, I think from Gizmodo, listed as their app of the day this past Saturday. It's an app called Oink.
Yep, it's Kevin Rose.
Yeah, and the tagline for Oink is, we don't rate places, you rate the things inside.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the one thing I was kind of disappointed with the fact is I downloaded Oink, you have to go through this whole mess to become what's called an Oink builder, which basically is to be approved to be able to rate things in places. And so I'm sitting at a restaurant and I'm going, well, I'm not going to be able to rate my food because it's an hour has passed, 2 hours has passed before finally it was approved. Mm-hmm. But basically the way it works is you find nearby places. Say you're going to Johnny's Pizza Shack and you really like the pepperoni pizza there. So you go into Johnny's and you order the pepperoni pizza and you can rate the quality of the food. So one of the benefits to that is if I use Oink and I am going through, so-and-so town, and I'm looking for a place to eat, I can see, Johnny's Pizza Shack is around. Well, I'm there. What should I order? You can look and see what other people have ordered there and what their ratings are, so you can kind of get a hint of what would be good on the menu for you to order.
I like the sound of this, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it's just for food. It looks like it might be for other things as well. It looks like it's primarily for food. Now I'm looking at the website. But
chocolate.
Well, actually, one of them, games, all of those things. You can basically rate anything. So again, one of the things that's been in the iPhone world is kind of like, thumbs up or thumbing down places. But what's great about this is that you're actually rating individual things. So, which could be very helpful because I know when Father Chris and I travel a lot, we like to go to restaurants while we're there. It would be great to know, for example, if you're in Rome, what's a great place to eat? Well, I know Father Chris is going to say Dal Roberto.
He will.
So if you go to Dal Roberto, you can look in Oink and see, well, what have people, have ordered here that they really liked? And of course, my wife would tell you have to have the lasagna. So,
and I would say it would have to be the carbonara.
Yeah, the carbonara.
It's always the carbonara.
So you can rate that and see what people really like the carbonara here. So again, Oink.
That's a good reason for us to go to Italy again with that app. So we'll get the data package, Joshua, and we'll go.
Let's get right on that next week.
Yeah, let's do it. I just got back. I'm ready to go again. All right, my pick of the week I actually changed. I'm going to do another pick of the week after I finish reading this book. I don't want to give it away just yet. The other thing is something that's eaten up my time. One of the beautiful things about multitasking is, well, you can in fact do that. And on Google Chrome, they have all the tabbed browsing, which is very handy. Well, there's a game that showed up on the Chrome apps that I have become, quasi-addicted to. It's called Entanglement. Has anybody else seen it?
I have not.
No. Well, I don't know why it showed up on mine, but anyway, it's basically this honeycomb or this kind of hexagonal thing, and you click on little squares here to try and move this little red thread around the screen. So if you're viewing us on the video cast, you can see it. If you're on the audio cast, I'll do my best to explain it. And then it goes from each hexagonal tile to another. And so you're trying not to get the red thread to go to the end or to go back to the center piece. And so you can twist and turn the tiles. It's kind of like Zen Tetris, if I can say that, you know. So you can search for it in the Chrome store. It's called Entanglement. It's from the folks at Gopherwood Studios, which I suppose at some point, if you pay them money, they will build an Ark for you. But I haven't seen that happen
This
yet.
is kind of like that old game in the Microsoft Entertainment Pack, Pipes.
Oh, it is kind of like Pipes. That's exactly right. It reminds me of that. So it's probably just a new version of that. And if you're really competitive, it can submit your score to I don't know what. I've never done it before, but it uses your Google account to submit your score, probably so you can be in the running for I don't know what. So anyway,
Entangler of the Year.
That's right, Entangler of the Year, which would usually go to Father Ryan, who has our next pick of the week.
Indeed, I do. About 2 years ago, I read a book by a guy named Dr. Benjamin Weicker called 10 Books That Screwed Up the World.
Oh.
And it was...
Sounds like your kind of author.
It was a delight. It was about Nietzsche and about Descartes, and it really was very, very fun to read. And, of course, it was done very kind of sassy and tongue-in-cheek. Well, this guy, Dr. Weicker, just wrote a new book that is going to turn people off just by the title. I was turned off by the title. But it is a truly excellent book. It's called 10 Books Every Conservative Must Read, plus 4 others that are worth your time, something like that. It is not a book about politics. There is a section on it's each basically these 10 great authors plus these 4 great authors of fiction that everybody should read. It includes things like Plato, C.S. Lewis, G.K. Chesterton, Vogelin, Jane Austen, J.R. Tolkien, Shakespeare. It's a truly excellent, well done, well articulated book that is not brash, it's not abrasive, it's not jerkish, it's certainly not an Ann Coulter book. It is not pushing a political party, or it's not a Ron Paul book. It's just a really, really good book about sanity and down-to-earth practical reason as it has been played out and written about by great authors throughout history. The title is very off-putting. I don't like the title at all, but the book is really, really good. And so I recommend both of Dr. Weicker's books. First is 10 Books That Really Screwed Up the World, and then the second one is 10 Books Every Conservative Must Read. They are both very, very worth your time. There are also both have audiobook versions at audible.com.
No Kindle version I see, though.
What's that?
I said no Kindle version I see, though.
I thought they were Kindle versions. It may be an EPUB. I read them on some device. I don't know which one.
Maybe so. Maybe you found a
It should
rogue
be, yeah.
device. From that book to our Audible pick of the week, you got one there, Father?
Indeed, I do, and I very, very strongly recommend it. We do want to thank Audible while we're waiting for their sponsorship of the Catholic Underground. Audible is the world's leading supplier of audiobooks and spoken word digital audio. And so if you were to surf to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground, you're going to get 2 weeks free to try the service out. The Gold plan is going to offer you one audiobook every month, and it's going to give you access to lots of free and discounted materials, books, magazines. It's also going to give you free daily newspapers like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. You can turn your commute, your time at the gym, your yard work into something that really is meaningful and valuable. And so this week I'm going to recommend a book by J.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit. I just finished listening to The Hobbit, and in this book, which is read by a British guy and which is acted out by an entire crowd of people.
Really? That's awesome.
All the songs are sung. All the voices are very well put together. And the story really does come alive. You know, I mean, I'm excited about the Hobbit movie that's coming out.
Me too.
But this is so good. So I went ahead and bought The Lord of the Rings, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. All the songs are sung, same company. Really just a great book. So do check out the Hobbit audiobook. It's available at audible.com, but you need to go to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground if you want to make us happy with you.
Otherwise, we won't be happy at all.
We'll only be mildly amused.
That's right. Only mildly. At any rate, that's our Audible pick of the week. And if you want to get more information on us, on Catholic Underground, If you want a link to our Twitter feed, our Facebook page, and all that stuff, if you want video and audio podcasts, go to CatholicUnderground.com without delay. Joining us, as he does without fail, every time we ask him to, and even when we don't, Joshua LeBlanc. He's the Shorts Master General at CyberCatholics.com. He's at JR LeBlanc on Twitter. Thank you, Josh.
Salute your shorts.
Get it right or pay the price. Father Ryan's church is online at CampyCatholicChurch.com, and all of his personal posts, especially about his shorts, are on Twitter. He is at FR Humphreys. Thank you, Father Ryan.
Hey, it's been a privilege.
My shorts are Adidas shorts because I like them best, and I can also fake the fact that I don't know how to play soccer because I don't. But I look the part in the privacy of my own home with my classy shorts. You know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can follow me at Digital Catholic. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on this digital continent. We are Catholic Underground. We are Faith Gone Digital. We'll see you next time.